Hey guys, before we start the video, I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Aura. Now, if you recall, I had my Google account hacked before, and I nearly lost everything attached to it. We're talking my email, my YouTube accounts, how I make my living, currently, all was taken from me. It really opened my eyes to the dangers of today and just how exposed we truly are to scammers, spammers, hackers, etc. I also found out that my information was being sold through data brokers. For those who may be unaware, data brokers sell your information to anyone else who could send you spam mail / email, text messages. They can attempt to scam you online, get into your accounts, anything. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives. It's all out there. It's scary. I tried manually searching and seeing if I could scrub away the information, and I did find that they had some of my old addresses, phone numbers, even a P.O. box that I used while I was attending university. But there are just too many data brokers out there. It seemed impossible. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to access my social media accounts, bank accounts, other sensitive information, you name it. Aura do more than just that, though. They offer antivirus protection, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, just to name a few tools in their one package suite. You don't need multiple applications to do all these things anymore. Aura have it all under one name. And for this level of protection, it's honestly a good price. Right now you can sign up using my link at aura.com/Nate narrates and get a 2-week free trial to try them out for yourselves. They even have family plans so you can protect yourself and your loved ones. Honestly, it's brought me so much peace of mind that I can get back to making videos and pursuing my passion without worrying if I've left any devices vulnerable. It's always good to be prepared for potential threats, even the ones you can't see. At least with Aura, I know I'm protected online no matter what device I use. If you've been wondering what you should be using online to protect yourself, you should probably click the link today and try it out for yourselves. That's aura.com/Nate narrates, NATENARRATES. I'll also pop the link in the description below. Right, on with the story. Old Willow's Cabin. Once upon a chilling October night, in the picturesque town of Willow Creek, nestled amidst the autumnal embrace of trees shedding their leaves in the crisp, refreshing air, a young, bronze-skinned girl named Maya resided. Her eyes, the color of rich earth, radiated with an insatiable curiosity and a thirst for adventure that seemed to transcend her tender age. Maya's restless spirit often sought refuge in the vast embrace of the woods that bordered the town. It was a realm shrouded in enigma, woven into a tapestry of rumors and gossip spun by the townsfolk. On this particular night, the moon hung in the sky like a vigilant sentinel, casting haunting shadows that painted an eerie atmosphere across the neighborhood. Maya's fascination for the enigmatic and unexplored took a firm grip on her. The allure of the forest's unfathomable depths beckoned to her, and armed with nothing more than a flashlight and youthful bravery as her guiding beacon, she embarked on a quest to conquer her fears and explore the uncharted. A symphony of leaves crunching underfoot and twigs snapping accompanied Maya as she ventured deeper into the shadowy woods. The wind, whispering secrets from ages past, sent shivers racing down her spine, causing goosebumps to ripple across her skin. The rustling trees seemed to sway in harmony, as if they were beckoning her further into the heart of darkness. Guided by the elusive winds and the play of shadows, she stumbled upon an ancient, dilapidated cabin, its time-worn facade hidden by years of abandonment. The cabin's door creaked and groaned in protest as Maya pushed it ajar, the eerie echo resonating through the stillness of the night as she stepped into the dimly lit interior. Her flashlight struggled to pierce the darkness that clung to the forgotten relics within. Cobweb-covered furniture and floating dust particles greeted her gaze, endowing the room with an otherworldly aura reminiscent of phantoms from the past. Undeterred by the ominous atmosphere, Maya pressed forward in her exploration. In the depths of the cabin, she stumbled upon a journal with faded pages, the handwriting barely legible, but hinting at the strangeness that lurked within these walls. The entries spoke of inexplicable occurrences and an evil presence that only blessed artifacts could repel. Fear gnawed at her heart, but a fierce determination to uncover the truth pushed her onward. In the stillness of that cabin, a soft, distant whisper emerged from the hollow halls, cautioning her to leave. Maya's curiosity caused her to ignore the plea, which led her to a concealed room at the end of the corridor. As she entered, she beheld a secret chamber adorned with arcane symbols and worn-out relics, each exuding an aura of ancient malevolence. An old mirror stood out among the artifacts, its surface ominously reflecting a shadowy figure that was not hers. Terrified, Maya attempted to flee, but the door slammed shut, sealing her fate within the clutches of the malevolent force. The figure in the mirror began to materialize, a ghastly blackened form taking shape and haunting the chamber. Panic surged within Maya as she recollected the dire warnings from the journal. In her frantic search for an escape, she overturned old, wrinkled papers on her desk and tugged at the rusted handles of each drawer. In a stroke of fortune, one drawer revealed a strange pendant, an encircled cross exuding an aura of mystic power. Clutching the pendant, she felt an inexplicable strength and courage welling up within her. With the relic clutched tightly, Maya faced the entity with newfound determination. Raising the pendant, she watched as the figure recoiled, vanishing into the shadows from whence it came. Seizing the opportunity, she sprinted towards the door, her trembling hands fumbling with the lock just in the nick of time as the ancient cabin succumbed to ruin and collapsed inches behind her. As Maya caught her breath, the weight of the encounter settled upon her. She surveyed the remnants of the fallen building, the shattered wood seeming to breathe and stir. Suddenly, a shadowy figure rose from the wreckage, sending chills down her spine. The adventure was far from over. The enigma of the night continued to unfold, leaving Maya on the precipice of a newfound journey into the unknown. The Screech of Willow Creek. The autumn evening painted the landscape in russet and gold shades as the sun descended below the horizon. Daniel, a weary traveler, returned home, his footsteps echoing through the quiet woods surrounding his cabin. The air carried a chill that prickled his skin, and the wind, an eerie and mournful presence, howled as if whispering secrets only it understood. As Daniel approached his rustic haven, a peculiar unease settled over him. Like an invisible shroud that clung to his every step, he inserted his key into the door, its weathered wood resisting his touch for a moment before yielding to his insistence. The twist and turn of the knob felt like the turn of a page in a thriller, the suspense building as the door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit interior. Inside, the cabin appeared as it always had, yet subtle disturbances caught his keen eye. A chair sat askew, its back no longer parallel to the table it belonged to, and a book resting on the floor, out of its usual resting place on the bookshelf. His rational mind tried to dismiss these anomalies as the result of his own forgetfulness. Still, the disturbing feeling in the pit of his stomach remained, an ominous presence he couldn't shake. The encroaching night swiftly descended, swallowing the last vestiges of daylight in its inky embrace. Shadows danced like phantoms on the walls, their movements unpredictable and menacing, mirroring the whirlwind of thoughts inside Daniel's mind. While he sat by the fireplace, its flickering flames casting an uncertain glow upon the room, he detected faint rustling noises from the woods outside. At first he brushed it aside, attributing the sounds to the rustling of leaves in the autumn breeze, a mere symphony of nature. But with each passing hour, the rustling grew bolder, like a whispered secret evolving into an insistent demand for attention. The shadows deepened and elongated, forming grotesque silhouettes that seemed to mock Daniel's growing unease. Then, from the depths of the forest, a sound erupted, so bone-chilling and otherworldly that it sent a jolt through every fiber of his being. It was a screech, an agonizing wail, that cut through the night like a knife through silk. Birds startled from their slumber in the trees, fled their branches in disarray, creating a cacophony of wing beats and alarmed cries. For Daniel, it was as if the very earth beneath him quivered, and his heart raced in terrified rhythm, an anxious question lingering in his mind. What kind of creature could produce such a dreadful and unnatural sound? The night wore on, and the eerie screeching persisted, its relentless crescendo mounting Daniel's unease to a fever pitch. He moved with a sense of urgency, locking every door and window as if it were the act of sealing a pact with an unseen menace. Yet, the screech refused to be silenced, echoing like an evil spirit, an otherworldly siren's call that lured him deeper into the dread abyss. As the night's darkness pressed closer, the screech grew louder and more invasive, like a presence that had infiltrated the very walls of his cabin. Daniel, his heart hammering against his ribcage, paced his home in frantic circles, feeling like he was losing control over his reality. Though muffled by the walls, the creature's wail seemed to seep through the very pores of the cabin, tormenting his senses with its eerie persistence. Finally, the screech reached its crescendo, a nerve-shattering climax that had Daniel frozen in place in the middle of the hallway. His broad, fearful eyes locked onto a seemingly ordinary white wall, starkly contrasting the nightmare unraveling around him. And yet, it was this very wall that became the vessel through which the creature's horrifying presence made itself known. Summoning every ounce of courage left in him, Daniel ventured into the kitchen, his trembling hand clutching a large, gleaming knife. The flashlight in his other hand pierced the darkness, casting long, tremulous shadows that danced and contorted on the walls. As he plunged the knife into the drywall, a putrid stench, fetid and nauseating, engulfed him, almost as if the very walls of the cabin exhaled their secret horrors. The feeble beam of the flashlight revealed a sight that defied the boundaries of his imagination. A grotesque creature, hunched and twisted, with a monstrous countenance, its eyes bloodshot and malevolent, bore into his soul, and a gnarly, crooked smile spread across its grotesque face, as though it reveled in the terror it instilled. Daniel, frozen with terror that surpassed all reason, stumbled back, his mind unable to fully comprehend the monstrosity that had emerged from the very walls of his sanctuary. As if hungry for fear, the creature lunged forward, its razor-sharp claws reaching for him, narrowly missing their target as he stumbled away. In a panicked frenzy, he sprinted down the dimly lit hallway, his heart pounding like a wild beast trying to break free. He reached the bedroom, his trembling hands fumbling to shut the door just in time. He heard and felt the creature's body crash into the wooden barrier, the impact reverberating through the room like a thunderclap. With frantic desperation, Daniel pushed his dresser against the door, its weight a feeble barricade against the relentless onslaught of the creature. He placed his desk chair atop the dresser, adding anything he could find in the room to fortify his precarious sanctuary. It was a feeble attempt at defense, a makeshift bulwark against a demonic force that seemed relentless and insatiable. The following hours were a harrowing descent into madness, a relentless cycle of scratching, screeching, and the constant pounding on the door. The cabin that had once been his refuge now felt like a grotesque prison, its walls closing in on him with an unforgiving grip, as though an unrelenting warden of nightmares had possessed the very structure. Weeks passed, and the world outside Daniel's cabin seemed to have forgotten him. The neighbors who had once known him as a friendly and solitary figure observed the eerie transformation from a distance. They had not seen him venture beyond his cabin's threshold in what felt like an eternity. During their daily walks, they would cast furtive glances toward Daniel's home, and what they saw sent shivers down their spine. There he stood, a haunting figure, his gaunt silhouette framed by the cabin's dimly lit window. His posture was unnatural, contorted, as though the very act of standing had become a torment. Some neighbors swore that they saw his head turned towards the window as they walked by, his eyes meeting theirs with an unsettling intensity. It was as if he had become acutely aware of their presence and existence and longed to communicate something beyond words. His gaze locked onto theirs, his eyes reflecting a darkness that chilled them to their core. As his eyes locked onto theirs, a high-pitched screech, the same unearthly wail that had tormented him, escaped from Daniel's lips. It was a sound that defied the boundaries of human vocalization, a cry of such sheer terror and anguish that it sent shivers down the passerby's spine. Whispers of Willow Creek. In the heart of a densely entangled forest, nestled within the enigmatic and eerie confines of Willow Creek, there lay a town veiled in the shroud of unending mystery. This remote hamlet, cocooned by the encircling woods, seemed more like a cryptic enigma than a settlement. Its winding pathways, overgrown with gnarled roots and moss, exhaled whispers, secrets of yore. The towering trees, ancient sentinels cloaked in mossy robes, appeared to guard an age-old riddle buried in Willow Creek's soul for generations. It was a moonless night, and the canopy of twisted branches overhead painted the landscape in an unsettling obsidian shroud. On this fateful night, the forest's hush was broken by Henry's approaching footsteps, a weary traveler who had, by the whims of fate or some preordained design, ventured into the heart of Willow Creek. His face was etched with the weariness of countless miles, his eyes tinged with an uneasiness he couldn't quite articulate. As he drew nearer to the outskirts of the town, a peculiar sensation crept over him, dancing upon the line separating the inexplicable from the ordinary. The air thickened, and the once gentle breeze transformed into an unsettling gust that seemed to carry sinister whispers and insidious murmurings from the depths of an unseen world. In an attempt to quell the shivers racing down his spine, Henry attributed it to the exhaustion wrought by his arduous journey. Resigned to find temporary refuge, he crossed the threshold into Willow Creek. He checked into the only inn, a decrepit establishment whose dimly lit corridors echoed with the unsettling creaks of age. It was as if the very walls held within them the untold secrets of the town. With a sigh of relief, Henry retired to his room, yearning for the embrace of a dreamless night's sleep. However, sleep proved elusive for him, for as soon as he closed his eyes, he began to hear faint whispers, as soft as the sigh of the wind, as indistinct as the footfalls of distant memories. They brushed against the fringes of his consciousness, like ghostly fingers tracing invisible patterns. Initially, he dismissed them as nothing more than phantoms conjured by a weary mind, but they grew more persistent as the night wore on. The following day, the voices intensified as Henry ventured deeper into the town's heart. They wrapped around his thoughts like ethereal tendrils, haunting and persistent. He couldn't quite decipher the words, but their tones sent a chill down his spine, a symphony of dread that seemed to resonate with the very marrow of his bones. Henry's composure was slipping, the insidious whispers gnawing at the edges of his sanity. Desperate for solace, he roamed the peculiar shadowy streets of Willow Creek, but the voices clung to him like a relentless shadow, growing louder and more coherent. They spoke of horrors unimaginable, of forgotten souls and unspeakable deeds. He muttered to himself, unaware of the words that escaped his lips. The deal of Nathaniel. Famous Malam. Hungry. Feed. Him. Need. Blood. Starving. Starving. Butcher. Bodies. Hunger. Nathaniel. Famous Malam. Each phrase reverberated through his consciousness like a macabre mantra, driving him deeper into a state of confusion and despair. In a desperate bid to escape the discordance within his mind, Henry sought refuge in the town's library, a dark, antiquated building with sagging shelves and the scent of aging parchment hanging in the air. The librarian, an elderly woman with disquieting pale eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries, greeted him with a knowing smile. Hesitant but desperate for distraction, Henry inquired about the town's history. Like a spectral whisper, the librarian's voice unveiled the tale of Willow Creek's dark past. She spoke of the ill-fated pact the town's founder had struck with a demon, a sinister covenant that manifested itself in mass every few years, or when the demon deemed the sacrifice insufficient. Henry's heart chilled as the tale unfurled, the words weaving a tapestry of terror. The librarian recounted an age-old incident, one etched in blood and trepidation when a deranged man named Edgar Galloway had terrorized the town. He had been driven to madness by the relentless whispers of the forest, the haunting voices that echoed in Henry's own mind. Galloway believed that the trees spoke to him, unveiling the darkest secrets of the town's past. As his insanity spiraled, it culminated in a bloody massacre, the town nearly being devoured by the maw of unbridled madness. Galloway insisted that the voices demanded sacrifice to appease the ancient spirits dwelling within the forest, a demand the town had barely survived. The scars of that night were etched into the very fabric of Willow Creek, haunting its every corner. The librarian's voice grew somber as she explained that when the townspeople failed to uphold their end of Nathaniel's dreadful pact, famous Malam took matters into his own hands, using whatever means necessary to satiate his unholy hunger. This revelation sent a shiver coursing down Henry's spine, for he now understood the voices that had plagued him. He relived the horrifying descent into madness that had once consumed Edgar Galloway. Desperation clawed at Henry's soul. He had to escape the haunting clutches of Willow Creek, the eerie symphony of voices that threatened to consume him. With a heart pounding in his chest, he made a hasty exit from the library, a burning resolve to flee the town simmering in his veins. But as he stepped back into the cobblestone streets, the forest seemed to stretch its gnarled fingers to trap him once more. The louder and more insistent voices followed him like phantoms in the night. It was as if the very town itself conspired to prevent his escape. The relentless, discordant words filled his mind, drowning out his rational thoughts. He tried to block out the voices and tried to run, but there was no escape. The utterings of forgotten souls and the unspeakable deeds echoed in his ears, drowning out the rational thoughts. He was being pulled deeper into the abyss, and the boundaries of reality itself were beginning to crumble. Finally, the inevitable happened. The voices consumed him entirely, melding with his thoughts until they were one. The last shreds of Henry's identity, his very essence, were swept away in the cacophonous torrent. Guided by the haunting symphony of voices, he found himself venturing deep into the forest, where the towering trees stood like ancient sentinels, their twisted branches interwoven like skeletal fingers. It was as though the very soul of the forest was reaching out to embrace him, to pull him into its enigmatic heart. Amidst the entangled chaos of the forest, he discovered an ancient oak, a gnarled behemoth among the twisted trees. The moonlight filtered through the branches, casting eerie, shifting shadows on the forest floor. The tree seemed to emanate an evil aura, its presence ominous and oppressive. The whispers crescendo as he approached the ancient oak, assaulting his senses with an unrelenting fervor. Henry, his mind on the brink of oblivion, placed a trembling hand on the tree's bark. What happened next was beyond comprehension. A surge of energy coursed through him. An overwhelming force threatened to consume his very being. Now reaching a deafening climax, the voices merged with his own thoughts, creating a dissonant symphony that threatened to shatter his sanity. Henry screamed a primal, guttural cry that echoed through the forest, his eyes rolling back in his head as his consciousness teetered on the precipice of madness. And then, as suddenly as it had all begun, the voices ceased. The forest of Willow Creek fell into an eerie silence, the ancient trees standing sentinel over the fallen traveler. Henry's body lay motionless on the ground, leaves and twigs cradling him like a shroud, covering yet another unfortunate soul that happened upon the evils cradled within Willow Creek.